Hi, Steve Stahlberg here with monthly painting video number 57, made in Kuala Lumpur, September 2018. This one's finally getting back a little to the kind of pin-up origins of this my Patreon endeavor as opposed to recent months. But it's a bit less pin-uppy in that it's not all cute and stuff, it has a darker subtext. One thing I changed in the preliminary sketch, as you see here, is the legs, which leg is folded. So at first I had the top leg folded, and here's some of the references I used. And now I'm going to redraw the whole thing based on that sketch, which is off to the right. This idea started visually, as most of mine do, a vision of how the curves of a woman lying on a flat surface, ground, which accentuates those curves, because the hip is pushed upwards, the waist is going downwards, etc. Could fit between the wheels of a tank. It's a bit weird, but going up and down on their suspension. The wheels move up and down because each one has its individual suspension working. Now, this is obviously very unrealistic in many ways. In that way, it's similar to my Titanic Hindenburg mashup I did a couple of years ago. Who knows, maybe she has superpowers to start with, but even the tank itself isn't very realistic compared to real tanks. The suspension can't travel as far as this. The wheels are based off a German World War II Tiger, but none of the other parts look like it. It's just a construct. It's just an imagination, just trying to make it seem realistic. Just sort of lifting forward, just emphasizing the features of a tank that I needed for this effect. Here you see me working on the wheel. I'm gonna do one wheel first, 90% finished, and then copy it a lot of times, because there's a whole row of wheels in front, there's another row of wheels behind the first row, and then apply a little bit of extra shading. You can see I'm doing directional shading already in the first wheel, and that means, of course, I can't rotate the other wheels upside down or anything, but that's not necessary. You can flip it. You can flip it horizontally. You'll see me doing that to one of them, and you can rotate them 10-15 degrees, and it still won't seem off with this sort of kind of ambient lighting that I'm applying here. It looks quite rough to begin with. Of course, you start rough and then you refine as you go. Yeah, and I'm going to grunge this up quite a lot later as well. What I'm after is a heavy metal feeling, dirty heavy metal, which is a tank. After you've used it for a while in the field, it becomes extremely grungy. Especially if you use it in a real war. But yeah, here comes some of the grunge already. I'm going to use that same brush later again, in a stronger way, on its own layer, sort of across everything. And yeah, I've applied like ambient occlusion, this blurry darkness. That's kind of, in 3D they call that ambient occlusion, when you have soft shadows happening between two objects. In this case, it'll be the side covers, which haven't been applied yet, and between the side covers and the wheels, you'll see. Right now I'm applying some highlights there, and copying the wheels, flipping and rotating. Flip it there, rotate it a little bit. The other two wheels that you only see a part of, it's not really necessary to rotate, because they're not that important visually. And darkening everything back there, and later you'll see me adding another layer of wheels behind this first layer of wheels. Now I've started working on the tracks. First, just start with one link, of course, and then start copying, because of course, painting the links one by one, I could do that too, but it would just take I would estimate about 3 to 5 times as long as doing it this way. I still did a lot of painting after this. This is like just the first step, but this first step would have taken way longer to do if I'd had to paint them. And of course they don't look very good right now. They're still very rough. I didn't finish them as much as I did the wheels before I copied them. So that is a question of balance. You want to balance it. You don't want to finish it too much before you copy. You don't want to have it too unfinished before you copy. So you want to finish it off just enough to save you time. Because the whole purpose of that exercise is to save time. And here I added the side covers, the side armor. And I've started painting on the character itself. I forgot to mention, obviously, that green color that I tinted everything with in the beginning. That was obviously meant to just thinking about the green armor, the greenish armor of the tank, and just if you have to pick one color, which one would it be? That's how you think about that part. Now the tracks aren't usually green. They are different colors, so in this case I'm trying to make them look muddy, dirty, because there's going to be mud in this picture as well. There's going to be a lot of mud. Here I am applying the grunge that I told you about on a separate layer. It's going to be overlaid, so start with 50% gray. That's going to be the middle color, which won't show up. It doesn't show up when you use overlay as a mode. And then one white and one black version, and then move the black version a little bit down and to the right, and you can see here what happened. It's a little bit grainy now, so I'm going to blur this just a little bit right there, and now it has a kind of a relief effect. And so putting this across everything first, and then later I erased more and more. This portion I'm stretching. I'm trying to apply a perspective effect to the grunge, and it kind of works, but I didn't actually use this in the end. In the end, the mud needed to be wet, and so that doesn't look wet right there. That looks very dry. So yeah, none of this grunge was used in the final picture. And you can see I've added some skin tones to her as well now. Different shades of brown. I will be adding sunlight here eventually. But so far you could call this the ambient occlusion layer. The directional lighting of the sun, I haven't added that yet. Which I'm going to do in a fairly easy manner. I'm just going to select areas and put them on a separate layer, and I'm just going to hit auto contrast, and that's actually going to work. Sometimes it may not work, but in this case it did, and it was fairly fun to do because it was easy. Yeah, I'm refining the body here, adding a bit of highlights, a bit of shadows. The muddy ground looks like crap right now. This ground actually completely changed towards the end. I wanted it to be mud because the point here comes the sunlight, by the way. I needed the mud. I needed the dirt because she's being pushed down. It's a degrading kind of thing happening here. Something happening against her will. She's not doing this voluntarily, and tanks often do travel through mud, so it just fits in with the storytelling aspect of the image. I mean, a flat, white, boring ground would have been boring, I actually used mud in another picture too. I seem to be fascinated with tanks somehow, and whenever I do a tank, I like to do mud. I don't know. I'm not sure why. I just associate the two together. And yeah, right now this isn't muddy enough, but you can see here the grunge is still appearing here. I'll paint over some of it, but I did keep a lot of the grunge here, and the grunge is also similarly visible on the wheel right there. And obviously here you can see I erased it on the female form. Now cleaning up the character. And in a moment you'll see there's a missing part here that got corrupted when I was saving it. Sorry, that was when I was painting the face. But you've seen me paint faces in almost all my other videos, so I hope that works for you. You can check out one of the other ones if you basically do it the same way every time. I use a sharper brush, and yeah, there it is, the face. And here I'm actually copying and moving the face because it was kind of felt like a broken neck there. The neck wasn't really working anatomically correct, and so I changed the position of the face. Now at first I get this empty area raw, and I'm stretching it down, which will result in her chin to be too big, basically out of whack, out of alignment. Eventually I fix it, but yeah, here you can see that the chin is too big, too wide. It's easy to make mistakes when the face is not, you know, positioned in the way that you're normally used to looking at a face in a vertical position, horizontal. And I have the hand and the arm on a separate layer. I work on a separate layer with overlapping things like this, especially when something important like a hand is overlapping something else that's important like a face. Then I'll work on a separate layer, just because, you know, if you change your mind later, you want to adjust it, which often happens for me. I always adjust things. I sometimes get really sick of just one small part that I have to adjust 5 times. You know, you know how it is. Probably it can be really frustrating sometimes. But yeah, that's why I keep them on different layers. You can see here on the side here, you can see I've had already 3 versions of the character, the ground and the character, 3 versions of that, which I kept in the PSD, so you can have a look at the different versions. I think I ended up with even one more, like 4 versions in the end. So here I'm working on the ground. I'm trying to get the ground. I'm starting to add puddles, but this wasn't enough. So in a moment you'll see me scrapping this idea and just put a wet look across the whole thing, and then instead of adding minor puddles, I do one huge puddle, and then I add, yeah, I'm adding some dirt grunge here. On top of the one big water surface, I try to add the mud as little blobs of mud. But yeah, this is the color. I only kept the color, basically. I'm happy with the color. But this is the reflection of her body. Copy the body, stretch the body, motion blur, and you see here, moving it down a bit, erasing parts that I don't need. Now you see already it starts to look like a reflection on a rough surface. A very specular surface that is slightly rough enough, micro rough, so that it gives you that stretched look. And here I'm trying to add little blobs, little islands of mud. It's on the right track. It didn't quite work either. So what I ended up doing in the end is I blurred them. You see here I'm blurring them quite a lot here. And then I'm adding a bit of a photobashed mud on top of that from a photograph. There you see the photograph. Not 100% opacity, just low opacity. And here's some mud on her, which obviously she was too clean before. And yeah, mud will get, you know, stuck to the tracks and drip down on her, and obviously her hand will be more muddy than the rest of her, because that's where you sort of catch yourself and try to push back. And I added this mud splatter here, or blood splatter, or whatever that is, and this little thing here. Those are also photobashed parts that I put in. Yeah, it's done. Yeah, hope you like it. Let me know if you have any feedback or questions. Thanks for your support, and see you next time.